Welcome back to Parsnips and Parsimony. Today I'm putting in my tomato plants and I wanted to share with you the 3 things that I always try to remember when I'm planting my tomatoes. The one thing you always have to remember is what kind of variety of tomatoes do you have and what size staking do they need. Tomatoes are either determinate or indeterminate. This particular variety is indeterminate, meaning that it will just continue to grow and grow and grow and produce until it finally dies. Determinate plants will only reach a certain height and then they will produce all of their tomatoes and then the plant will die. Depending on what kind of plant you have, you will either need a tomato cage or tomato stakes. In my case, I'm going to need tomato stakes because these are indeterminate and they will just keep growing until I pinch the tops of them off. Any old stick will work. These happen to be leftovers from trimming this hedge and we just are repurposing the sticks that were from that, but you can use anything that you can find. About 6 to 7 feet tall is about good. If the plants get any taller than that, the fact is it's going to run out of season. So I usually pinch them off once they reach the top of those poles and let the rest of the fruit ripen and develop. The next thing you need is some newspaper. I use the newspaper to make paper collars for all of my tomato plants. If you've ever had a plant that you've planted and then the next day you come out and you notice that the plant is clearly caught right at just above the soil level, more than likely you have run into cutworms. They are notorious for destroying crops, early crops, and the smaller and more tender your plant, the more tasty they are to those cutworms. Paper collars are an inexpensive way to protect your crop, and I make sure I do that every time I plant tomatoes. Depending on the size of your plant will depend on what size collar you'll need to make. In this case, these are fairly healthy plants, so I'm going to make collars approximately 2 to 3 inches wide, so I cover that entire stem and protect it from cutworms. The third thing I always do before I plant my tomatoes is prepare the soil. I went ahead and scratched this up, making sure the soil is nice and loose. We don't step on this, so this is good from last year, and removed any of the weeds. I always like to dig a large hole for my tomatoes and add some compost from our compost pile, as well as using some 10-10-10 all-purpose fertilizer. You can pick this up at any hardware store or garden center. You can also do a 5-10-10 if you can find that. Today I could only find the 10-10-10. I use this to help those plants get off to a really good start.
What's the fertilizer made out of, Daddy?
Okay, that's good. And Art went ahead and planted that down about a foot. When the seed first sprouted, these are those first true leaves. We're going to actually take those off, and then we're going to take off this leaf here. And that's not going to hurt the plant at all because all those little hairs down here can actually turn into little roots. So what I'm going to do is take my paper collar, and you can adjust these collars to whatever size you have. This is not going to hurt the plant. It's just to protect it from cutworms. And then if these were really long, I could lay them sideways and tip them up. These guys aren't that big. So we're just going to plant them straight down into the soil here. Good. Again, make sure you keep that paper collar above the soil line so those worms don't come and eat your plant. It's always best to transplant your tomatoes if you can control it on a cloudy day so they don't have transplant shock. This is late afternoon. It's actually clouding up. I'm going to go ahead and water these and finish up. I'll show you the entire bed after I'm done. The tomatoes are all planted, and now I just am going to sit back and watch them grow. All that's left on these tomato plants are some grass clipping mulch. I'll go ahead and put those clippings around the plants just to help retain moisture, but also to help with weed control. I hope this video has been helpful for you. Thanks so much for watching. If you're new here, welcome. Please consider to subscribe. We're in a Zone 5 garden in upstate New York, and I'll be showing you all sorts of videos throughout this current 2021 year.
Water.
Oh, thank you, Daniel, for watering the tomato plants.
Water.